What would you do if you were forced to bomb an area filled with innocent people? Women, children, and bystanders of all types. Or told you must throw a man in prison for life because he stole for his hungry children. These are your orders no matter how much you morally object to them, and you will be punished if you do not follow through. We are living in a generation with less independent thought than ever before. We are told what to do day in and day out. Even now, you're sitting here listening to my boring speech because someone told you that's what you're supposed to be doing. Now, what if my speech was a lecture on how we should all take to the streets and attack anyone in sight with guns and knives and commit other unspeakable crimes? If this is something you morally object to and don't want to listen to, then you need to stand up and object to authority. The only way for you not to be forced to listen to my nonsense is through civil disobedience. I believe civil disobedience is not only a morally acceptable way to promote change, but also one of the most effective ways. Civil disobedience is good because, first off, morals make us human. It is an extreme enough concept that it is taken seriously, and civil disobedience aims to be nonviolent. If we really want to see positive change, one must remember a few key ideas. First off, morals make us human. Malcolm X says, "So my contention is that whenever a people come to the conclusion that a government, which they have supported, proves itself unwilling or proves itself unable to protect our lives and protect our property, because we have the wrong color skin, we are not human beings unless we ourselves band together and do whatever, however, whenever is necessary to see that our lives and property is protected. And I doubt that any person here would refuse to do the same thing if you were in the same position, or should I say were in the same condition." When he says this, he's saying that when you do not agree with your government, the natural and human reaction is to take action of your own to ensure protection. He later says, "We are the only ones who face his dogs, who tear flesh from our limbs." He means it both literally and figuratively. Dogs are animals who lack morals and established boundaries. When a person does not follow their conscience and listens to the authority telling them to tear flesh from limbs, they are no longer human. They're as good as any animal, really. Martin Luther King Jr. also says in his "I Have a Dream" speech, "Again and again we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force." The soul he talks about is the ability as a human being to have morals and be a human, as humans are the only ones we speak of having souls. Although his followers may be beat on a physical level, they were still human and stood up for what was right, but not necessarily law. The laws that govern us are taken very seriously by the enforcers, so any act of change must be taken seriously as well. Civil disobedience is extreme enough to be taken seriously and promote a possible change in any situation. Henry David Thoreau says in his piece Civil Disobedience, "A minority is powerless while it conforms to the majority, but it is irresistible when it clogs by its whole weight." In this, he wants to convey the message that you might hold the less popular opinion on the actions of your government or any other situation, and you might opt for a change that is hard to get, but you are not alone, and when the less popular opinion truly pushes for that change, they will get it. Referencing again Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, he says, "With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that one day we will be free." This eye-opening speech was an act of civil disobedience of the social laws of society at that time period. His words became the truth today because it was taken seriously and agreed with by thousands. He was the change he wished to see in the world. Now, when Rosa Parks said the simple word, "no," she was calmly breaking a law for what she really believed in. Although it may have caused her some uncomfort with the consequences later, it was worth it because she sparked a movement that changed our nation as a whole in just one simple act, just saying the word "no." Some of the most effective movements encouraging change have been nonviolent, like Ms. Parks was. Civil disobedience aims to be and must be nonviolent, so you will not be trading one broken moral for another. One of the best examples of nonviolence is in Martin Luther King Jr. says, "In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. It would have been absolutely hypocritical if Dr. King was to break the morals he was fighting for in order for them to become a law." Many of us know the famous nonviolent protest Gandhi led that was called the Salt March. When he refused to pay the British tax on salt, he and his followers marched over 270 miles to get their own salt. Yes, he was jailed for a small amount of time, but that was the only injury he sustained. This was one of the first acts that led India to their independence. Now, when Thoreau talks about his refusal to pay taxes as the taxman came to his door, in a similar situation, he says, and it then says distinctly, "Recognize me," in the simplest, the most effectual, and, in the present posture of affairs, the indispensablest mode of treating with it on his head, of expressing your little satisfaction with it and love for it, is to deny it then. No one is harmed when he denied the fact that his country was not satisfying his needs. He disobeyed, but while making his point, he was nonviolent. If the concept of civil disobedience is nonviolent, you cannot morally object to it, so you may consider it your best option at some point in time. Civil disobedience is the most morally acceptable and one of the few effective ways to make possible changes, not just in your life, but in the lives of others as well. So the next time you are commanded by authority to do something you are morally objected to do, consider your options of either give in to an uncomfortable and possibly haunting decision, or consider civil disobedience and the difference you can make with this simple concept and how really the outcome of your disobedience may outweigh the consequences of your actions.